Welcome to the last round of the Rapid Tournament. We are currently in a very specific situation with the 6 out of 8 points, playing against a very strong Grandmaster. And we are in a must-win situation for the prize spot. e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, g6. So I opt for Rosalima, he went for a g6 variation, the most popular online. I played castles, he played bishop g7. And at this point here I picked one not popular line, but very solid line with d3, where black has options to go e5 and also to play d6, knight f6, and my opponent chooses to go to e5. The point is to go a3, and after knight e7 to push b4. So this is very interesting pawn sacrifice. If black decides to take, he's already entering worse position, where after knight c6, bishop d6, and white is dominating the game. With this initiative, he grabs the activity and put black pieces in a bad spots. Instead, he went d6, which is a much better move than accepting the trade on b4. And d6 is also developing bishop in the future on e6. So if black manage to make bishop e6, castles, later on b6, black will be better. But he's not at the time. We take the pawn, they take back, and now very strong move bishop to g5. As I remember my analysis, I know that queen d6 is one of the most annoying moves. Or I think bishop d7 actually. Because after bishop takes, they will recapture with bishop, and now we cannot double their pawns. So after bishop g5, black is in some little practical trouble how to adapt according to these pins, because we have very easy threat just to take, and we are already more pleasant here for sure. Then we're going to use our knights to exploit the weaknesses, like a c4. For example, f6 is the most natural move here and the move that I faced online. We're going to just drop the bishop back to e3, and after b6 we just play bishop c4 and we permanently stop the castles. If they try now to play something like queen d6 followed by bishop e6, they're not in time, because after knight c3, bishop e6, we have very strong move knight b5, and after take we have knight c7, and we are winning the game. Instead he went castles, which surprised me. I took on c6, he takes back, and now I rush for bishop takes e7, which is not the best move. They took with queen. Better move was to just to drop with bishop back, or to play knight bd2, and if they go f6, just to drop pieces back and play on these bad pawns. I kinda rush here for no reason. Thought the preparation goes this way, bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and now knight bd2, where white is still more comfortable for sure, but I just lost superior advantage. For no reason gave up the bishop on g5 for bad knight on e7, bishop e6, and now knight c4. That's the reason why I'm playing fast, because in my head is the line that I was analyzing, and I remember that I should give both bishops and enter this position. Now I know that if he takes and I take back, that this knight could be better than this bishop on g7. And I'm also fine with a draw at this game at some point. I don't want to risk too much because it's last round. And I had tendency in the past to lose important rounds and get out of the, let's say, prize pool. But okay, prize is not so much important here. I just want to have normal natural game and not make some silly mistake. He decided to take, I take back with pawn. And here the idea is to go something like rook b3, queen e2, stack the rooks on some line, most preferably to go on the b line, because that's where we can enter, since bishop f6 will control d8. He played queen e6, now queen e2, very natural move, defending the pawn on c4. He played bishop f6. Now the prophylaxis for white should be something like g3, h4, just to outshine this bishop, king g2, then bring the rook to the middle, stack the rooks in this quadrant on the b line or the d line, and maybe in the future reroute the knight on d3, where he can actually create some targets on c5 or e5. Now I'm just picking between which rooks to get in the middle, like this rook or this rook. It's always better when you are playing in the middle game to take the control over the closer line to their king, but here I cannot do anything. There is a bishop controlling the 8, so I started with a rook. They play rook to a to b8, challenging my rook. Now just rook b3, but I also didn't like the fact he'll trade and then place the rook on b8 and attack my pawn here. Even though he corrects my pawn structure, then I'm having the weakness on b3. He played that move, and now I respond rook fd1, trying to get rook b3 maybe, and then rook b1, preparing slowly. I could directly go rook b3 as I mentioned, but for some reason I didn't like this position as I mentioned. Now rook b8, and now I have to move my queen something like queen c2 and get into this game instead. I went rook from f to d1, he played king g7, and I mean position is equal, but white looks more comfortable. I cannot still start with knight regroupment because he will improve the bishop on this diagonal. I played g3. My plan is to go king g2 and h4, creating prophylaxis on the king side. He improved the rook on the d line. Now I was thinking here, as I remember in the game, if I take on b8, he'll take on b8, and suddenly the rooks will come in. So I cannot really allow that. And if I wait and play something like king to g2, then after take I can take back with queen because my pawn on c4 is hanging, and if I take back with rook, he might enter with a rook on the, let's say, b2, and feels a little bit uncomfortable to allow him to exploit my second rank. So after rook d8, I'm now deciding to play rook to b3, where now if they take, we're gonna accept this trade. And obviously if rook takes d1, queen takes d1, queen takes e4 is not possible because rook on b8 is hanging. So that's preferable line for us. So that's why rook b3 is very solid move. Also I'm planning to play maybe rook takes d8 and bring the other rook to d3 later. He took on d1, I took back with queen. So we actually got this sequence. And we are getting the line for our queen, but now there is rook d8, which he commit in the game. Targets our queen. Now I was thinking about to play rook to d3, but you know, maybe my rook is better to stay on the b line, so that's why I picked to move the queen on e2, protecting my pawn on c4. On the other side, this rook will never actually come into the game. If he tries to play something like queen d6, I'll play king g2, and if he enter in, we're gonna have some trade, and I'm definitely faster with rook b7. Maybe I can go g4, g5. Nice harassment for the bishop. Instead, he went for h5, and h5 provokes h4. Then he played very interesting move, queen to g4. And now if I go king g2, there is this trick, bishop takes h4. So you have to be careful to not blunder something. This is rapid chess, and I saw that trick. Maybe in the blitz, depends if we are in a time scramble. This is possible to miss. But okay, not really on this level. Because knight is pinned, you can't take, queen is hanging. And you can't take with pawn because king is under check. There's actually a very strong move here, queen to e3, but I didn't like the fact rook sneaks in with rook d1, and now after king g2, bishop takes h4 is not existing. Since knight takes h4 happens, queen is not anymore pinned. But this rook here definitely feels annoying. And maybe engine recommends this position because there is simply no tactics. Like queen cannot infiltrate suddenly on the first rank and give me checkmate on h1. So after queen g4, I found very normal and solid move, prophylactical move against all of these tactics, and that's the move king to h2. So now if bishop takes h4 happens, I have pawn takes h4, and now I'm winning because my king is not pinned. But here there is very annoying g5 break, which directly equalizes the game for black. After h takes, bishop takes, and if I take with knight, I'm again losing the queen. So here I need actually to provide some counterplay, maybe with rook d3. On the other side, I can't move my knight. So this pawn is not hanging, not really. Like if I go queen f1 here, maybe h4 could happen. And suddenly there is some breaks for black. Maybe my opponent missed that opportunity. Instead, on king h2, he played rook d7, trying to control 7th rank. Now there is very powerful move queen to e3, but still this allows some rook d1. That was on my mind all the time. I played rook d3, trying to challenge the rook. And now maybe he should take, where after queen takes and king g2, I'm definitely the one playing for the win in this endgame, because all of my pawns are on the light squares, and he actually needs to keep pieces if he wanna provide some sort of counterplay and counteractivity. If he doesn't take and keeps the rook on d7, I'll take it, and after queen takes, I'll play queen d3. So that's another direction that could happen. Instead, he played rook to b7, I played rook to d3, he came back on d7, and I repeat, instead I should go queen e3 and then directly go for this pawn. This pawn is literally hanging on bishop e7, I can take on e5, but instead we repeat the position and we agree on the draw here. I was better, I had a chance, of course, but I'm very happy with this threefold repetition, especially against Grandmaster and in the last round, reserving definitely some good spot on the tournament. That's it for this one, and I'll see you in the next one.